fasting, in particular, intermittent fasting, has dozens of health benefits throughout the body, which I'm going to show you. Intermittent fasting is, in this case, I'm defining as 16 hours of not eating and 8 hours of eating. And I'm not saying gorge yourself and eat junk foods again, it comes back to healthy foods. But intermittent fasting is something we have done for literally millions of years. Now we do it because we know it's good for us and we feel good as a result of it. However, we have done it for millions of years because that was the way of the hunter-gatherer. The hunter-gatherer never had the fridge, never had the pantry. They weren't able to go and get a midnight snack or one at 6 o'clock. They had to actually go out, hunt and gather it. And of course, that relied on a lot of extra time. And so they generally ate in little windows of time and very versatile. So I'm going to emphasize here though, the 16-8 isn't precise. It's not, you've got to do 16, you've got to do 8. If it's an hour and a half, an hour, 2 hours even varies. And the whole point about your digestive system and the hunter-gatherers, it did vary. It did vary every day. So it was never the same. They didn't have the clocks and the times to time it anyway. So it did vary, and that's what it's about. But what we now know from the hundreds and hundreds of studies, it has lots of benefits. And the three primary mechanisms that we know of where it starts to work is first called metabolic switching. And that's when it moves from basically taking sugar in the liver where it's stored, and if you've got a little bit of extra weight around your organs and so on, it starts to take that out and goes to burning fats. And as a result, losing that fat around that fatty liver, around the organs, your visceral organs, which is the dangerous part where the fat accumulates, and producing ketones. Now later on, in part 2, I'm going to explain the benefits of ketones and why they're so good for you, but if we understand they produce the ketones, you've probably heard a lot about that anyway. The second one is it helps reset the circadian rhythm. Now, your circadian rhythm is the timing, your body's clock. And while we have parts of the brain that's reset it, we have organs and cells. Every cell has its own reset. And so by changing our eating patterns, instead of eating for 12 or 13 hours or 14 hours a day, we do that 16-8. It actually resets the biological clock rhythm patterns, and as a result has lots of benefits in there too. And the third one literally is the gut microbiome and digestion. So when you eat for 8 hours and fast for 16 hours, then your gut microbiome changes to become more beneficial. So you end up with a lot more bifidobacteria and another one called Akkermansia and lactobacillus, and they have lots and lots of benefits around the body. And it also helps reset digestion. And as a result of these, you decrease inflammation and decrease oxidation throughout the body, and as a result have lots and lots of benefits. So what are the benefits? If you see that is the mechanism behind it, then the benefits, and this is my short list. I'm going to go through a lot more, and these are all show up in the studies. They've done them on clinical trials where they've had people fasting. They've done them on religious fasting, such as in Ramadan. They've done them in a whole raft of studies. My studies, they're all done, and there are hundreds and hundreds of these studies. And the first one is it increases lifespan. Now, you've probably heard that if you reduce calories, they did all these experiments 20 years ago, 30 years ago, on reducing the calories of mice extended their life. But what they didn't realize when they were doing that experiment, they gave them a set amount of food and they ate it within a 3 or 4 hour period. So actually the lifespan part of that experiment was actually also intermittent fasting. So it was reduced calories and intermittent fasting. They didn't calculate that in the experiments because the mice, when they're hungry, they're going to eat really a lot, finish it off in a couple of hours, and then not eat until 20 hours later. So they did even extreme intermittent fasting. Hence, we now know that our lifespan is increased with intermittent fasting because we see that as a result of animal studies when they've now done intermittent fasting. Now, a lot of this is based on animals. There are some human studies too. Youth span, which is the vigor and vibrancy, and I'll touch on that right at the bottom, which is what you want to do. You don't want to just get old and frail. You want to get old and younger if you can, or older and younger if you can. It dramatically improves metabolic health and all of those metabolic health conditions associated with it. Now, you've got to remember that this is changing the metabolic system, it's changing your biological clock, and it's changing your gut. And each one of those work on virtually all of these areas anyway. So it improves your metabolic health, which basically means it decreases your risk of diabetes and insulin resistance, as well as non-alcoholic fatty liver. And in fact, the studies show that it reverses those conditions to get back to a much healthier state, because it's getting rid of all that toxic fat, which is inflammatory and causes oxidation around your liver and all your visceral organs. Studies also show it lowers blood pressure, both systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure, by around about 3 millimeters of mercury, about 3 points. So that's a really good plus. And then now remember, that's an average. So for people who have really high blood pressure and overweight and so on, it probably drops it a lot more. Science works on averages. So it drops blood pressure. It dramatically reduces your risk of cardiovascular disease, heart attacks and strokes as a result of it. And we see that in both human studies and in animal studies, and partly because also it lowers blood pressure and it's improving metabolic health. It has all those ramifications, reducing oxidation, inflammation, a whole raft of these things. It decreases neurodegenerative diseases such as multiple sclerosis, and there's a human trial that went on for 2 months which showed very positive results. Only a short trial, but at the moment where there are now trials on virtually all of these diseases and more in human experimentation. So they're all underway right now. There are human trials going on right at the moment with Alzheimer's disease, because in the studies on Alzheimer's mice, so the mice who have Alzheimer's, when they do intermittent fasting, it has extreme benefits. So we now know from the animal models, so human experimentation, human trials are now going on. But we've got some data back on multiple sclerosis already on human trials. Now, breast cancer, cancer in general decreases. Now, what's really interesting about that is the studies on intermittent fasting and cancer date back to around about 1908, the first one, 1914, 1920, and quite a few around that era. And they identified that intermittent fasting had a dramatic impact on reducing the incidence, reducing the progression of it, the spreading of cancers. And now they also show that intermittent fasting helps with the actual chemotherapy and radiotherapy and other treatments for cancer. So quite dramatically, actually, extremely beneficial in terms of those conditions as well. So we know from those early studies, and in the mice studies, we show that it dramatically reduces the risk of cancers. And in human studies, and human trials and so on, they've got evidence of reducing breast cancer. Now, ladies, if this isn't jumping out at you, now, potentially, that benefit comes from all of these other things that are happening down here as well. But isn't it a great sign that it's telling us already? So one of the first things, we suggest to people is intermittent fasting. On all of my talks for fixing up all of those metabolic and health and immune system, basically conditions, start with intermittent fasting. Obesity. It decreases obesity, it increases weight loss. Now, linked in with that and other ones, and I haven't put up here, is also arthritis. That's both arthritis, as in rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis. It's been shown to benefit ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthritis, have all been shown to benefit. Now, I'm going to go into more detail on those in my later videos, part 3 of intermittent fasting, the benefits. So just stay tuned for more of the evidence on that. But it reduces obesity and weight loss, which obviously has huge benefits around the body. It increases cognitive performance and memory. So people report, and the studies on both mice and on humans in this case, show improvement in cognitive performance and memory. So they're thinking quicker, more alert, and their memory is functioning a lot better. And that works because ketones, but also because of the decreased neuroinflammation in the brain as a result of dysbiosis or problems with the gut, as well as a rebalancing of the circadian rhythm. So those 3 things and other factors work in there to work here. And finally, it improves physical performance. And there are trials right now on athletic performance. So we know in mice, and they actually get faster and able to do longer runs on their treadmills and so on. And in small trials on humans, we know it improves their physical performance, and in humans, we know it improves their quality of life. So if I haven't convinced you of the benefits here, and this is just a summary. Now in part 2, I'm actually going to show you how it does it, why it does it, and how you can enhance it a little bit better. But we've got all of these things occurring here. Intermittent fasting, 16-8, it doesn't have to be rigid. Don't get caught up on, 16-8, I have to stop at, start eating at 11 and finish at 7 or whatever it is. It's about having some flexibility. And the research suggests that it starts to kick in after 12 hours. So a 12-hour fast, first of all, and the longer you kick it in, the better it is. But more on that later when we get into the detail in part 2 and 3. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, tick the like box because the information is important and I'm sure you've enjoyed it.